I bring you those special greetings here on the Pan-African Drive. Of course, it remains a platform that is meant to inspire and motivate the current generation of young Africans in the actualization of their respective dreams, preaching the message of peace and national unity, as well as revitalizing the Africanization policy that speaks about good governance, social justice, democracy, human rights, and most importantly, the African unity. Like I normally say, quoting Paul Kagame of Rwanda, he says, and I quote, "Until Africans learn to own their own problems, find their own solutions, they won't be able to write their own stories." The very essence of the Pan-African Drive here, taking responsibility of our challenges and finding corresponding solution to them. And for tonight's edition of the Pan-African Drive, we are super honored and very privileged to be in a one-on-one conversation for a young Gambian businessman who has metamorphosed into an educationist. And not only that, he's climbed for a height in the era of politics. He's representing the movement or / political party called NAFA. That's the National Alliance for Accelerated Advancement, NAFA for short, and he's going to be having a one-on-one with me on what I call evaluating or assessing the African leaders and the voters. But we'll take our first break shortly. Once we return, I introduce you to the guests. But be reminded that this edition of the Pan-African Drive is proudly sponsored by AfriCell, the best GSM service provider, not just in the Gambia, but by extension the rest of the African continent. We'll take our break. Once we return, we kickstart the show here tonight.
We've got fantastic new social media bundles just for you. Here are your options.
50 megabytes for $10 is valid for 1 day.
Enjoy 400 megabytes for $40, valid for 7 days.
Get a massive 1,200 megabytes for $100 is only, valid for 7 days.
Simply dial *120# and press 3 to pick the social media bundle that suits you best. Subscribe now.
Why settle for one when you can talk with two? With the AfriCell TOK service. For just $99, you get a massive 1,200 minutes of talk time to share between your two favorite people. To activate, dial *135#, select your two AfriCell numbers, and you're locked in for a full month of conversations. AfriCell, connecting you to your peoples.
Welcome back from that short break here on a Pan-African Drive with me, Tony Michael House, CKA News Secretaries. Just like I said before we took a break, I got a young Gambian politician who is seated with me tonight to speak on what I call evaluating or assessing the African leaders and voters, a socio-political perspective. And he happens to be Mr. Osenon Allen, who hails from Canifin South, where he did his foundational education there to completion, and then proceeded to the United Kingdom and the United States of America, respectively, where he earned his qualification in civil engineering and business administration with master's degree at that level. Back into his country as an educationist with International Open University, which he spent 3 years in building that structure that now extends for Guinea-Bissau, not just Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, and Senegal. He's also the president of the Construction Association of the Gambia, Contractors of a Construction Association of the Gambia. He happens to be the president. Not only that, he's also represented the Gambia at international levels in tennis. He's a man of many positive sides. He's going to be speaking with me soft-spoken. Should I say welcome to this platform? We are super honored and privileged to have him on the Pan-African Drive, sir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for the very colorful introduction. It's appreciated. I would just like to clarify.
Okay.
I'm the secretary of GACON, the Gambian Association of Construction Contractors.
Thank you for that clarity, sir.
Everything else you were spot on.
Okay.
And we hope to have a very insightful discussion today.
That's a super one there from my guest. It's going to be a hope to being the 1 hour ride here. And I guess wherever you are under the sound of our voices, join us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and X, and enjoy the great time here on the Pan-African Drive. Many thanks to our MCR team there in the Bodies Fire, who is ensuring that you get this live very cleverly tonight. Shortly, let me get to you cleverly because we have no time. Mr. Allen, when I read your profile, I was tired reading. I don't know if I completed that. With all of these massive strides in the area of education, business, so to speak, one would say, you're comfortable now. So why politics?
Very important. Can I run through my background, or should I just jump to the politics?
Be at liberty, then drive us through that and then tell us why politics.
Yes, because everything culminates to the next.
Okay.
Growing up, I attended Dawes Comprehensive, but at the same time, I was involved in sports.
Okay.
Like heavily involved, to the extent that I was accorded some time off, learning time off, so I could go and do my trainings.
Okay.
And I traveled widely across the
I would actually
region.
want you to concise this because we have crucial matters as well.
Yes.
No disrespect to your profile, but you can put it in a very concise manner.
Understood. Eventually, I completed my secondary education, added some further courses before leaving for the UK, where I did multiple courses, but eventually did civil engineering as my major.
Okay.
I returned back to the Gambia, helped establish what was then the Islamic Online University before the name changed to International Open University. Eventually, I resigned after 3.5 years, but after having realized that I've put in the structures necessary for the longevity of that institution.
Okay.
I embarked upon establishing my own school. It's a bilingual school, and a construction company, amongst others. These all culminated to my realizing that, you know what, politics is necessary to bring about that wholesome change that is needed for our people. Because in every step of the way, whether it's in sports, whether it's in academia, whether it's in civil engineering, whatever you're involved in, you're dealing with the everyday Gambian.
Okay.
And the everyday Gambian has their needs, and some of these needs are a consequence of certain indecisions by our leaders, which eventually leads to them, the average Gambian failing later in life when it could have been addressed at the earlier stages. So when I realized that our education system is breeding people who are very teacher-focused as opposed to research-oriented, or learning system that addresses the needs of the learner as opposed to just focusing on the teacher.
Okay.
I set up a school that is unique. It's called the Montessori School, and it places the child at the center of learning. And this is a problem-solving approach to my life. But when I realized that whether it's in education and every other facet of Gambian life, there's something that is unique, and it is the elected officials, through the scribbling of a pen, can change the lives of people. I embarked upon that journey, not for my own self-interest, but to impact more lives than I could have possibly done if I had focused on these other matters.
Mr. Allen, we're discussing about the behavioral pattern, the socio-political behavioral pattern for the African leaders and the voters, so to speak. You talked about all of these experiences you've had, most of these impacts you've had, and then you feel that being at a level of the presidency or highest level in politics will provide you the right and even environment to do more. But one will be seated somewhere and thinking that, look, this is how they come. Was this the ulterior motive you had that prompted all of these different endeavors? Were you aiming at this target where you are aiming at right now?
Not really. That's why we do politics a bit differently. We talk to Gambians, and when we tell Gambians that do not allow to be hoodwinked, especially in this election period, do your own investigation. Whoever comes to talk to you, ask them, what do you have to place on the table?
Okay.
If it is a matter of just highlighting the inefficiencies of the elected officials or the pains that Gambians are feeling in our everyday lives, you don't need to keep repeating it. We are already living it. But what do you have to undo all of this pain? Tell it to the people. So if you look at my trajectory, then it's more focused on selflessness and problem solving as opposed to seeking to empower or entrench. That's why after completing my studies in the UK, many others stayed. I had to leave with much uncertainty waiting for me in Gambia. But when I came, I applied myself and I found myself running a university. I wasn't an education major, nor was I focused in academic systems. But because of my managerial capacity, I found myself running an institution of higher learning. So these matters are what motivates me to seek public office and work with others within my organization to also seek office where we can change the lives of the everyday Gambian as opposed to just doing it in silos, because it cannot do the wholesome change that we desire.
The National Alliance for Accelerated Advancement seems a very beautiful nomenclature. That's something that when any voter listens to, it sounds amusing to their ears. But outside a sound, beautiful nomenclature, what do you bring on a political mortgage market as a movement or a party? Because mind you, small Gambia has got multiplicity of political parties. What distinctively makes you special as a party or movement that you think should be enough for the Gambian populace to trust with the amounts of authority to steady affairs of this nation for the next 5 years? What do you bring on the table?
I would mention 3 points. The alliance bit of our name has to do with the need for collaboration. Okay. Because if you are looking at what the Gambians are in huge need of, I think working together is one of those. And acceleration in development is a must. We cannot do without, because as I always say, Gambia is stuck in time. And unless we accelerate, we put some purpose in our step, we will always be playing second fiddle to nations. And actually, in the sub-region, there are certain nations, all they need is a stable, level-headed president for them to really make it. So why shouldn't we accelerate our development? And the advancement is we need to move. On what basis are we going to do? We will expound upon it later on in this interview, but we have fixed agenda items that we feel that if we focus on as a nation, we will reach those heights that we might not necessarily have even envisaged as a nation today.
That's my guest there. I hope you're enjoying the ride already, as it's getting beautiful here on the Pan-African Drive, here with Mr. Osenon Allen, who represents NAFA as the interim leader, interim president, so to speak. I saw your video in provincial Gambia where you blended so well with the downtrodden masses in that part of the country. Perhaps ate their food or ate in the same plate. I saw you under the tree in a banter bar and chilling with them. When we do a survey of all politicians across the continent of Africa, one would describe your action as performative humility. Would you subscribe to that?
It's actually one of those ills that we are trying to undo.
Okay.
Because if you seek office through deception, you will rule with deception. So we want to be as natural as we could in the pursuit of office so that we can also rule naturally. We are from these communities, so why should we be a different person if we seek their votes? Because
you are from Carnifin South.
Yes.
You are not from the province where I saw you. But I saw you seated on the floor. I saw you seated with the people in the, almost, you can call that in the bush, so to speak. We've seen politicians like your type in their numbers. When Jean Ahebukasa was coming over, taking over in the Central African Republic, he was like more of a safe haven. 1986, the Yoweri Kaguta Museveni of Uganda, when he was coming, he says that one of the major problems, if not the major problems of African leaders, is the issue of self-entrenchment. 40 years after that, he's still the president of that country. You go to Faure Iyadimana for Togo. He's influenced national parliament to ensure that the term limit is removed so that he can serve as president for Rock of Ages. Guinea-Conakry is here. Military leader Doumbouya took over. Everybody thought it's a safe haven. In no time, he's going to turn issue over to civilian leadership. He influenced a referendum that permits him to have contested, Now he's the president of the country. How sure are the Gambian people that you are not going to change if you trust with the mouth authority to steady affairs of this nation?
It is about humanity. Wherever you might find yourself, be a human being. And there's not much difference between the person from Kanifing to the person in provincial Gambia, to be quite honest. We eat almost the same food. Maybe it's just the extras that are added in the meal.
Well, you don't see pizza. You see pizza almost every day.
Yeah, but pizza is it's luxury that if you can afford it, you can. And if a good businessman can, a astute businessman can take pizza to the provinces and make it affordable to the people, why not? So at the end of the day, it's just between humans. We need to be human at the, before anything else. Before being politicians, we are humans, we are Gambians. So we should not see ourselves any better than those people that we seek their votes from. And we've been working like this before the camera started, concentrating on us. So we are not performing. We have the track record over the years of working with people before even considering politics. So this is a continuation of everything else we've been doing. And now we're doing it because politics requires publicizing most of what you do so that you can encourage more people to subscribe to your agenda. Because you're publicizing it to also send a message. And the core of our message is, in the context of the nation state of Gambia, the most important development agenda is the bottom-up approach that is community-led, citizen-led, as opposed to top-bottom that we've been accustomed to.
Where the Pan-African Drive continues here, and I guess you are following the show tonight, and we say many thanks to the Social Science and Humanities Students Association of the UTG for the massive support to this platform here. We are with Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen, the Gambia heads to a general and presidential elections come 5th December of this year. How strong, how ready, how committed are you to changing the paradigm shift of politics in this country come December? Is your party ready? Is your movement ready? Are you confident?
We are confident because we know that it's the Gambians that will be voting. They'll be voting for what matters to them the most for the next 5 years. And they'll be voting knowing that the wrong decision will affect them for the next 5 years. So it's a matter of just reaching out to them and selling the agenda that you have. And for us, it's the sovereignty agenda, where we'll build the structures necessary to put the Gambia upon a trajectory of accelerated advancement. Doesn't really have to be 5 years. It can be less. But once you've built the structures necessary, you can bow out to the extent that even if an average leader succeeds you, the country will not even suffer. That's the essence of leadership. It's about building those institutions necessary for whatever eventualities the country might find itself in. There might not be those problems faced with depending only upon the ruler to remove them from those problems.
You're young, promising, soft-spoken. On a normal circumstance, these are things that appeal to Gambians, so to speak. Are you respected of term limit, even though your constitution currently does not provide any term limit, like two terms or 3 terms? So are you respected of term limit, like it is across several quarters of Africa, 2 terms? What sort of politician are you? Because I listened to you say something about as long as you can deliver. We were having a conversation, and you says as long as you can deliver, that's the duration.
I can only talk about my personal experiences.
Okay, tell me, please.
And I see how much I've accomplished within 3.5 years before resigning from a post that I could have still been occupying. So it's about what you deliver, not the timeline. I'm yet to see empirical evidence that term limits will translate into sovereign institutions being built within a country.
Okay.
Term limits will translate into economic success.
Okay.
Term limits can be a deterrent so that we can perpetuate that election cycle governance system, that management system, that post-colonial architecture system that manages our situations for every 5 years whilst hoping that the person who succeeds him will do better. We need to do better with our decision making in what will transform our country. We're speaking too much on the times as opposed to what should be delivered within that timeline. I think if we are talking too much on term limits and making it the main talking point, then we are losing sight of the fact that we need to deliver for as little a time as it should.
Yeah, where I would still want to play around that a little bit is crucial because at the age you are today, you weren't born this way. You were a baby some years back, and there were other people who were ahead of you. You've grown at this level, and you feel that an opportunity should be provided you to be voted for, as it remains your inalienable right as a Gambian. So it is crucial that we specify it as a whether or give clarity as to term limits, so that just as you feel Gambian, every single Gambian also has the right to feel that way, so that they are provided the same opportunity that you are provided today. I still want to play around. Maybe I need clarity as to you being a respecter of term limits, so to speak. Maybe you can go deeper a bit.
Yeah, for term limits, if I'm convinced that term limits is going to ensure that Gambia succeeds as a nation, Gambia achieves that sovereign status, Gambia achieves food sovereignty, energy sovereignty, technological sovereignty, then I'll be the biggest proponent of term limits. I want us to shift the focus from the duration, because we've been programmed to always calculate things within an election cycle as opposed to what we need to put to deliver for the Gambians. Because if we perpetuate that discussion, just election cycle, we'll be fooling ourselves and shifting that narrative from what should be delivered as opposed to
Allen,
when.
Mr. Allen, you are a businessman and you are a critical thinker as well. And I believe every project that you undertake, be it in the area of education or civil engineering, or so to speak, you have a time. It must be smart. It has to be specific. It has to be measurable. It has to be attainable. It has to be reliable. And it has to be time bound.
Yes.
If the Gambian people entrusted you tomorrow morning with the amount of authority to steady affairs of this nation for the next 5 years, how long do you want them to keep you there so that you can do what you think is right for the masses in terms of unnecessary democratic dividends?
For as long as I can deliver. So if I can deliver within 3 years and they're satisfied with what I'm doing, there should be periodic checks to ensure that confidence in this leader is assured. So if, I don't know, they have midterms in the US, where the voters determine whether they have confidence for this leader to continue or not. 5 years is too long to just be patient with an inefficient leader, for them to run our economy down, for crime to keep going up, for them to mortgage our natural resources. That's too long a time for the citizens to take hold of their destiny and change the direction. That's why we have the perpetuation of coups, because some elements of society are not too patient with being they are not too.
We take a short break. We'll take a short break.
We've got fantastic new social media bundles just for you. Here are your options.
50 megabytes for $10 is valid for 1 day.
Enjoy 400 megabytes for $40, valid for 7 days.
Get a massive 1,200 megabytes for $100 is only, valid for 7 days.
Simply dial *120# and press 3 to pick the social media bundle that suits you best. Subscribe now.
Why settle for one when you can talk with two? With the AfriCell TOK service. For just $99, you get a massive 1,200 minutes of talk time to share between your two favorite people. To activate, dial *135#, select your two AfriCell numbers, and you're locked in for a full month of conversations. AfriCell, connecting you to your peoples.
Welcome back from that short break. We apologize for that short break in transmission. We are here with Mr. Oseno Allen here as his offer expertise on the governance structure in terms of the behavioral patterns of all African leaders and the voters. We shift our attention a bit to your manifesto. What are the questions your manifesto is answering the Gambian people?
Good question. Our agenda has two main components. That is what we call cultural renaissance, and we have economic sovereignty. Cultural renaissance has to do with the Gambia. It has to do with the Gambian. What is the Gambia as a nation? The Gambia is a nation state whose borders are clearly defined. It's a land mass with people living in it, and we have our natural resources. We have 10 hours of sunlight, we have fertile soil, we have the sea going across, everything we have. But we have the Gambian also inhabiting this land mass. So once we've defined the Gambia, now we need to define the Gambian. Who is the Gambian? The Gambian is, the simplest definition is the citizen of the Gambia, born or naturalized or whatever you might call it. But is that enough to attain us the status of a prosperous nation? No. There needs to be prerequisites for that citizen to really propel the Gambia forward. So what do we need to empower the Gambia with, or to equip the Gambia with, in terms of those skills or those attributes or those character traits that will make sure that the Gambian propels the Gambia as a prosperous nation? Those nations that realized that they needed this element in their citizens for them to succeed, did it. Japan did it. Singapore did it. Rwanda did it. And we're finding that Burkina Faso also is on track. And how did they do it? They first identified their history. They know who they are. They realized that in this nation state of theirs, no one else will develop their country for them. So what does it require now for them to develop their country? They need to define the development trajectory so that they can equip themselves with the know-how and the discipline to steer the country towards that direction. What development trajectory do we need in the Gambia for us to really become sovereign as a nation and become a prosperous nation? Apart from the human element, we need the sovereignty element that has to do with energy, food sovereignty, and technological sovereignty. But all of these are under the umbrella of economic sovereignty. Okay, so food sovereignty for us is we need to first define what is our diet as a people. In your house, you've defined your diet. The next person next to your house has a different diet to yours. And your diet determines what you will go to the market with, what you will spend in terms of what you'll be feeding yourself and your family. You've defined your diet. So every day of the week, you know exactly what you should be eating in the morning, or however many times you eat during the day. A nation state should be no different. You need to define your diet, but you need to also be realistic with your definition of your diet, because it needs to also reflect what you have available in terms of resources or what you can produce. Some nations have gone to the extent of what they could source because they have the means to source foods that addresses their diet. So what do we have in Gambia? We have been imposed, it's been imposed upon us this cash crop called groundnuts, which is a very important food product for our country. But over the years, it has almost become a liability for our economy, for our farmers, and even for the ecosystem. For our economy, over the years, we have what we call aflatoxin. So the value of groundnut globally is dwindling because we cannot sell it to any country. So there's a select few. So our market scope has narrowed over the years. When it comes to the farmers, they're not getting the worth of the groundnuts that they're cultivating, which they do once a year. When it comes to the ecosystem, because we've been predominantly growing groundnuts, and it has an adverse effect on the soil, we usually go to the vegetation, we go to the forest and clear more forests so that we can get more land to grow groundnuts. Has groundnuts attained us the status of food sovereignty? No. It's just one element on the plate. What do we need to attain food sovereignty? We need what we call the core crops. The main dishes on our table, that is rice, that's corn, and that's koos. Rice, corn, and koos, if we can cultivate it, we can have enough produce to the extent that we can even transform them into other products. Once we attain these, then we have the vegetables necessary and we have the fruits necessary, then we can attain what we call food sovereignty. To the extent that what is happening in Ukraine or what is happening in Iran will not adversely affect our cultivation. Because if probably getting fertilizer from abroad is going to affect us, there's alternatives to fertilizer that can be done in the Gambia. So this should be the mindset of how we can sustain ourselves regardless of whatever the world is going through. Because feeding yourself should be primary. And you could also build industry from agriculture. Because once you improve the nature of agriculture, do not remove subsistence farming altogether, but enhance it. What do they need? They need water. We have ample water. We have a very high water table compared to other countries who've attained food sovereignty with water tables much, much, much lower than ours. Give them the necessary seeds, locally sourced seeds, using seed banks. But we need to also create what we call a transportation and logistics network from the farm to the market, or from the farm to the factory, or from the farm to the port for shipment. All of these will create employment, it will create industry.
You're talking about road connectivity.
Yes, but deliberate. It cannot be just haphazard like we've been made accustomed to. You need a national transportation.
Are you indirectly putting a slap in the face of Mr. President? Because how would you describe the road connectivity that he's undertaking under his leadership, President Adama Barrow?
Yes,
is it done haphazardly?
There's a saying in our local language, "Maikwi tahany mata gudi."
Okay.
Like you're fetching firewood at night. You might mistakenly get hold of a snake. They're just doing projects haphazardly, hoping that they could entice the people to vote for them. It's not deliberate, it's not forethought of for the long term.
Somebody would say that's a propaganda that doesn't hold water, because I've been here since 2011. I'm seeing the massive road connectivity in the country and the evidence are all over the place. How do you reconcile that?
It's beautiful if it's done. Can it be argued for the long-term sustainability of, let's say, this sovereignty drive? How does it affect the farmer in our industrialization drive? Or is it just to be for road users to traverse back and forth? The point is, we are not saying it's not good. There needs to be a logic behind it. It needs to be part of a wider program of a national transportation and logistics network, so that you could argue that, okay, from the farm, it needs to go to the market, from the farm, it needs to go to the factory, from the farm, and talking in the context of agriculture.
Okay.
There's the other elements of moving of goods and persons. That's the logistics network.
Are these current road projects not irrespective to these values you've indicated or indicating?
Some of them will tick that box, but it's not deliberate. It's just haphazard. You see, you could do lots of good, and it will be pleasing to the eye, but it can't be argued for a long-term project.
Mr. Allen, these words sound very, I don't know if I can describe them as constructive critique. Leave that with those in the comment section. But what I want to ask you now is that Chinua Achebe says that a chick that will grow into a cock can be known at a very day it hatches from an egg. What has NAFA done in terms of decentralizations of impact across remote communities of this country that Gambians can point out and say, look, at this level of being in the positions of our opposition, if they can do this, we think if they ascend the positions of authority at the presidential level, they will do better. What have you done tangibly for Gambians in touching their lives?
Yes, before we answer that, we just need to remind Gambians that we are the average Gambian that is seeking their own sustenance. We have families, and we know the family structure in the Gambia. There's lots of dependency. So you need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of your immediate family. You need to take care of your extended family. And you also have people who rely on you for many things. But on top of all of that, we take from what we have to also support communities. I'll give an example, probably more. There's a community in Central River. We visited them. They said they've been, the community is at least 100 years. So we asked them, what are the pressing needs of this community? They said, well, women usually wanting to deliver at night are left in the hands of God, or whoever the midwife, local midwife is, to really support them to deliver, because there's no transportation from the village to the nearest health center. Or if they go to the nearest health center, at night they cannot access the service needed, because probably the health personnel work the whole day, they need to rest at night. And even if there was transportation, imagine someone who's almost delivering, having to wait for the vehicle to come and go through those bad roads all the way to whatever distance the health center is. So we asked them what is required for this health center. We didn't get much of a response from them. We observed, because we also have done certain works in the health department, that to have a health center, sometimes you just need a room where you can admit someone temporarily until they get transportation to a referral hospital, and you have a room for consultation and some clean toilet or welfare facilities. I asked them, do you have something like this in this village? They said, yeah, there might be. We'll look around. So they looked around and they found that there was this former microfinance institution.
Okay.
So we embarked upon transforming it into a health center. Now it's going to have a big maternal ward. It's going to have quarters for the health personnel. It's going to have 2 consultation rooms. It's going to have a pharmacy. And works have started in earnest based on the little we can put together. The budget is much more than we can afford, but we are putting in the work and publicizing it so that those well-wishing Gambians could add their weight to it financially or whatever means, so that we could realize this project.
Mr. Allen, as you're speaking, I'm watching you and following the stories of politicians that I have lived to see, and some we've read about. It sounds so good to the hearing of the layman. But an economist has said that an economist dealing with human behavior cannot attain the precision of investigation. As such, an economist's generalization or laws are conceived as conditional rather than absolute. That is what is likely to happen under a given circumstance, but not what must happen or always happen. In other words, the unpredictability of the African politician is tough. How sure are we that you won't change from the beautiful voice or impact to a very opposite of you in politics?
I think consistency is one of the hallmarks of determining the true nature of a human being. There was a period when there was a by-elections in London Corner. I was hardly known in that place. Before the by-elections, I was doing lots of works, fixing the roads there. People would see trucks coming back and forth, but they wouldn't know who it is, because if I leave home in the morning, I only come back at night. But the by-elections came, and I realized that, you know what, let me throw my hat into the ring and just test the waters. So I had to campaign for 10 days. I came out fourth. I was beaten by the NPPs and the UDPs and the DOIs, you know, the established parties. I contested as an independent. But after the elections, many people came to me and said, you know what, we realized that you might have been the best candidate, but we didn't know you much. You didn't really expose yourself when you were doing all of these things in the community. But during my campaign, I had lots of things that I needed promised to do if elected. But one of those things I said that I will do, elected or not, is to fix a footbridge that is very problematic. That is from the Backwater Mall going into London Corner. And we did. We fixed the footbridge after the elections, and we made a walkway all the way to the mall. And these are occurrences where you don't see politicians do much, losing an elections and fulfilling a promise. But we didn't only fix the footbridge, we also did a walkway with it. So it wasn't just for performance, it was to solve a problem.
It was not just for performance, but to solve a problem. That's what I'm going to hold you. Have our break shortly, and once we return, we'll summarize this conversation here on the Pan-African Drive. Here, we'll take a break.
Scan the QR code and register on My Official app, and boom, you get 1 gigabyte free instantly. Just scan, download, register, and enjoy. Check your balance, browse bundles, send and receive money instantly, pay bills in seconds, anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back from that break. Quickly, Mr. Allen, you were making a point before we took the break regarding the project that you undertook. You want to just highlight that a bit?
Yes, that's in my hometown of London Corner.
Okay.
We fixed the footbridge. Amazingly, that footbridge now has become so iconic, it's become a reference point for even further footbridges being done by government agencies. They've come to take the prototypes so it could be replicated, because we fixed it in such a way that it will not also retain debris running from the canal, you know, because it's problematic, that canal. And there's a whole project called the Waka project, just identified to fix that problem. So the reason why we're saying this is it's been one of the most prominent social projects we've done. We are currently doing, let's say, the health center, like we said. So if the health center is done, then it will surpass this one. But we are doing others at a smaller scale. We are doing all of this without having received any tax. We are doing all of this with being very careful about the source of our financing, because political financing is a matter that needs to be addressed. We need to look into it with so much scrutiny, because it's making the playing field unlevel, and people are not being voted into based on merit. They're also overwhelming the electorate, because people are suffering, people are struggling. So if you overwhelm them with display of wealth, then it becomes problematic. Had I wished that the wealth that they display is actually put into projects that we've mentioned like this, because it could have served a better towards the communities as opposed to just the age-old political Yohiyai company, give it to the Yai companies, give it to these people for them to enjoy themselves.
Okay, time is not on our side. I want also look at the issue of the voters' behavioral pattern, the voters' fatigue in Africa. I'm not talking about the Gambia, but across the quarters of the continent, since it's a Pan-African drive. They are tired, they are exhausted. And how risky it is for a frustrated citizenry to say, look, I'm tired of voting because there are no change. Go to the Central African Republic, go to Sudan, go to the Congo. It's crazy how risky it is for one to refuse to vote simply because they've not seen the necessary democratic dividends that they actually vote for. What's the negative impact of failing to vote on the parts of the masses?
Right before coming to this interview, I had a meeting with a compin. They call it compins. It's a collective. It's like a collective of women within a community. Whatever savings they make during the week, they choose a day, usually Thursday, and put monies towards the compin so that they could use it to, it's almost like a social protection system. And they told us, they said, we're exhausted with politics and politicians. They told us our hearts have become hardened towards politics because we've been promised and failed. There's been promise and failed, and it's just unbearable. So I told them, but the thing is, if you dealing with them, put agency in their hands. Tell them, if someone is talking economics, it doesn't mean they're talking over your head, because these monies you're putting together is also economics. Because sometimes the narrative the politicians portray out there is, you will not understand, but you will see. No, talk to them so they can understand, because then it means they'll be more informed in the decisions that they're making. Deal with them as you are one of them. Encourage them to choose elected representatives amongst themselves. So if they were to choose a man who would eventually use the health center, or whose wife or mother will eventually use the health center, then that person they've chosen one of them. They could hold that person to account. They could hold them. They could support them, because it is a community thing. The problem is we have this political party type of politics where the institution, that is the political party, imposes candidates upon these communities. In many cases, these candidates are hardly known, or they're candidates who are hardly present in the affairs of the community. So they're easily compromised. So we need to give agency to the communities. This is as good a point in Gambia as it is in any other part of Africa.
Okay.
Let people know that we are choosing willingly the person we know to be efficient.
Okay.
And we know each other in these communities. We know who's efficient, we know who has the heart for the community and who's not. But because we've skewed the political space so much and left it in the hands of the political actors, they impose the candidates on us, and it becomes a vicious cycle that never ends. I think we need to reverse that trend. One
crucial question just before we wrap up. There is transactional politics in Africa because of the fatigue of our voters. Then now you go there and you explain all of your ideas and ideas like you're doing now. They say, look, we're tired with that. If you come here, what you put in our pocket is what we're going to use to give it our vote. Then at the end of the day, once the politician is sent to the positions of authority, he feels no chemistry because it's like commodity. He's bought what you've offered. So what's your thought to the masses that are involved with such transactional politics across the continent of Africa? What's your piece of advice for them?
It's affecting us because we focus more on developmental projects. So this transaction, we engage them, we talk to them. So let's say you have a youth group that focuses on football. So for them, whoever supports their football activities wins their votes. You ask them, do you live in a house? They'll say yes. You have a mother? Yes. You have a dad? Yes. You have sisters? Yes. So I've come to seek the nation. All you're telling me is your football. Do you have any good intention for the plight of your mother to improve? Yes. Why didn't you tell me the plight of your mother before your football? Why didn't you tell me the plight of your sister before your football? So flip the script. Let us talk about what is affecting all of us together, football included, as opposed to everybody you meet tells you their problem for you to solve, as opposed to. So we need this community. People should be aware of the community that they're living in. And they need to know that development transcends just your doorstep. You live in communities where you'll have beautiful houses. But once you step away from the doorstep, the roads are horrible. So we need that community spirit so that we can have that bottom-up development approach. Once this is embedded into the psyche of people, it will force the politicians to adapt. Otherwise, the trend will continue.
And that's a great one to hear from you. We've driven close to the end of this conversation. Just before I take leave of you, 1 minute, speak to the masses, the Gambian populace, as your right, as to what actually you bring on the table come 5th December if you are to contest with your party. What do you have to offer? You can choose one of the native languages to speak to the masses, what your party offers or what your movement offers.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to speak to Gambians and to speak to Africans at large.
Okay.
We are in the period of electoral registration.
I want you to do this in one of your best local languages before you replicate it in English language, please.
Jërëjëf kontaan naa torop si ni nga ma joxe opportunity ma waxtaan ak Gambien yi ñu ngi bindu si yëfi elections voter registration exercise mu ngi jeex teg naa 22nd or 24th of May so li si des bareetut. Every 5 years dañ dee am elections, presidential elections, waaye yeneen elections tamit daf dee am mooy National Assembly, mooy councillorship elections ak also mayoral elections. Election yi nii nag dafa am solo si suñ dundin parce que councillor bi moom mooy am pour jëflante yow every day. Mun naa am di nga diiri presidency bi doo musa gis president bi for 5 years waaye councillor bi yaa moom dina dëkka waaye sa voters card boobu noonu moo la dimbale pour nga elect councillor boo xam ne moom mooy mun a joytu bi nga am si gox bi councillor moo ko jël yóbbu ko fu ñu ko war a jooyee. National Assembly member bi sa soxla tunda bi yëpp moom moo ko war a jël yóbbu ko si kër bi ñoo waxtaanee mooy National Assembly. Mayor bi moom moo war a develop seen municipality bi so buñ xeeb voters card bi gaanaay la. soo ko jëlee denca ko sa wallet denca ko sa poste denca ko sa arankees foo ko denca baax na waaye jàppee ko ne gànnaay bi nga am la boo xam ne su la nit ki waxee lu dugga sa boppa bi nga dox nanga dem votal ko ba pare nga xool ko accountable parce que boobu tamit foog ñu waxtaan si duñ dee votal nit rek ba pare lem suñ loxo yi ba pare di leen seetaan dañ leen a gunge dañ leen a dimbale dañ leen a hold accountable nga xam ñu mun a góorgóorlu nit ki su nekkee ne da nga ko jox yëpp ba pare seetaan ko rek moom it daf koo jël enu ko teg ne bosam la. Just going back to
you can
the
use
English
30 seconds to do that. Yes.
Going back to the English language, is this voter registration exercise is happening now, and it will end on the 24th of May, if I'm not wrong. Let's do our best. If we have not gotten our voters' cards, let's go and get them at the nearest active, because they're moving. So just look for a place where they're active, get it. If you need to change your location, take it to your nearest IEC location to have it changed to your preferred location to vote. But see it as a weapon, see it as your the power that you have to effect change within your community, to effect change within your nation. We'd like to thank Teledal for having me, thank the Gambians for attentively listening, and the conversation continues.
It's beautiful having you tonight. Time fast spent. This is how we draw the curtain on this edition of the Pan-African Drive here on Teledal TV. Many thanks to our master control room in there, Mr. Bandis 5, for ensuring that this live becomes very successful. Not forget our sound engineer, Mr. Franklin Mack, who helped to have made this possible, and the rest of the team here in the back, Aaron Gay, and our management and staff will say salute to you. Catch you some other time on the Pan-African Drive with me, Tony Mikiel Howe. Bye-bye.
You can now turn your loyalty points into data or voice bundles. Simply dial *772#, press 1 to check how many points you've got, press 2 to redeem those points. Recharge on AfriCell, buy credit on AfriMoney, buy cash power. Lord Efrek, you get points. Even when you redeem, your total points still stack up, giving you a chance to win one of 2 luxury AfriCell villas. AfriCell, 25 years of rewarding loyalty, and we're just getting started.